Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Hallmark podcast. And we are really excited today. We are here to talk about the Hearts Around a Table series that just aired on the Hallmark Channel. And there were four movies as part of the series that all were all um, intertwined. They're all together, the same family and same group of siblings that we get to focus on. So it's a lot of fun. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and my friend Abby's here. And Abby, thank you so much for coming and doing this.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, well, I thought of you because when I found out that this series had such like a foster care theme to it running through it, you were the first person that I thought of because you've been a foster parent before.
Yeah, I'm honored that I'm the first person you thought of with that. Yeah, I was a foster parent for a grand total of about 3 years,
Hmm.
that I had foster kids in my home. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I was actually really excited to see that coming up on Hallmark.
Hmm.
I appreciate that their content is always like super wholesome, but
Hmm.
then I think with projects like this, they're pushing the edges of like what is wholesome, right?
Hmm.
Because this is like a non-traditional family,
Yeah.
and maybe something that's kind of spoken of as like, oh, those poor kids in hushed
Yeah.
tones in wholesome spaces.
Hmm.
So it's nice to like include foster people who've been in the foster care system as like, oh, these are like good, wholesome people.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it's good when we can tell all different kinds of stories, but still keep it the sweet romances or cozy mysteries, depending on the film for Hallmark, and keep it in the G-rated. It's all that there's we can tell a lot of people's stories within that genre, if you'd say.
For sure, for sure.
Hmm.
And I appreciate that they're doing that. They're like not getting left behind. They're moving into 2025 with the rest of us and like
Yeah.
doing different things.
Plus, they make so many movies that you figure if you're gonna make 100 movies a year practically, then I mean just for I think I had 42 just for Christmas.
That's
So
wild.
yeah, so if you're gonna make that many plus series plus like it'd be one thing I could see some people if they only made like 10 movies a year that you might be a little bit more like, oh, I don't want them, I want to tell these stories, but since they make so many, it's like let's expand, there's plenty of space.
There's so much space.
Yeah.
And um especially this was kind of a cool concept.
Yeah, I actually think that the sibling dynamic, and we'll talk more about that, but like that to me was the strength of the movie. Like the relationships were all kind of but like the family was what was. I almost wished I could have a series just about these siblings.
I agree 100%. And I kind of wished that they had leaned into that a little bit more
Yeah.
for these storylines. Like it could have
Hmm.
been primarily about the family with the romances as like secondary
Yeah.
storylines.
Well, I'm curious for your perspective because obviously, like foster families can vary just as much as any other families. But do you feel like this idea of this sort of chosen family where various foster siblings are really close and tight and Sunday suppers, do you feel like that's a little bit maybe too idealistic? Or do you feel like there are, these groups that form and connections and stuff like that? Do you see that with people that you know that are foster families, things like that?
Um, okay, so things that are real. Um, there are absolutely foster families that stay in contact once the children have either been reunited with their parents
Hmm.
or um, outgrown the foster system, right? There's absolutely foster parents who are parenting their foster kids long after they're adults.
Yeah.
Um, when they have no legal obligation to these children anymore. They just parent them because they need parents and they're
Yeah.
available to do it, and that's wonderful. Um, I think even if you were talking about like a more traditional family with two parents, at least one of them being a biological parent, um, with like a strong um extended family component. Even this is pretty idealistic, even in those
Mm,
circumstances.
right.
And so for this situation, it does feel like it's a Hallmark movie. So I understand that I'm going to be expected to suspend my disbelief a little bit more
Hmm.
than I
Yeah.
would in other kinds of media.
That's true. I mean, that's a good point because, like, my family, there's six of us siblings, six of us kids, and we actually just all eight of us, with my parents, all just got together for my dad's 70th birthday for the first time in at least a decade. And we've had like most of us there. We've had like four out of six or even five. We've had, three a lot. But just getting all six of us has been a Herculean task. And there's just always one missing at everything. And so yeah, it's really hard. Like just that alone, unless you were like very lucky that everyone stays homebound, everyone stays close by. I think that's a challenge. It's just hard to get everybody together.
Right. That's one thing that's, I mean, I think you could argue that we're seeing this family at a point where like they haven't really dispersed yet, right? They haven't like
Yeah,
married partners and gone off to jobs
that's true.
in other places. But I agree.
Yeah,
Even just having Sunday suppers regularly with that many adult like children
yeah,
is they're asking a lot of us. They're asking us to believe a lot,
yeah,
even for a
yeah,
Hallmark movie.
yeah. But I do think that was the nicest part of and just the it was the most, I thought it was the most well done. I thought that these actors, these women and Josh, I thought that they had nice chemistry together. It was believable that they were siblings. And so that was the part that I was almost looking forward to. Let's get back to the sibling dynamic.
Same, that's what I looked forward to in each one too. They were
Mm,
um just kind of sweet and bantery. That was, Hallmark is like it's like the fantasy, right? You're
sure.
looking for like it's not supposed to depict reality. It's supposed to
Yeah.
be escapist,
Yeah,
right?
it's not gritty realism in a
No, that's not what we
Hallmark.
want when we go to a Hallmark movie,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I felt like for me at least, that was the most escapist thing. Like, oh, wouldn't it be so
Yeah.
nice if I had siblings that were like this close and
Yeah.
everybody was nice to each other? I feel like
Right.
that family dynamic was the most escapist thing.
Yeah.
There was nothing
I
about the
agree.
romances in particular that felt like escapism. It was just kind of like, okay.
I also think that the romances in general felt a little rushed. It
Mm.
was like they had all this other storytelling, so many other characters that, especially the second and third, that I mean, Jenna's is a little different because they knew each other. So, like, it being rushed is a little more like, okay, then yeah, they, since they had all this experience, them saying, I love you at the end feels fine because they knew each other for all this time. It feels more fine, at least, than
Mhm.
like these others. It just feels like, oh my gosh, we've got to rush it. We gotta end this. And it's like, what? You don't love that person? Like, you barely know them. Like,
Yeah, it's kind of funny because they go straight from like in all of them pretty much. They go
yeah,
straight from like the first kiss to like I love
yeah,
you to like hinting at marriage proposal.
yeah. Soulmate. The second one, she had just barely been like, I'm not ready for that. I've just been through this divorce, all this stuff, and then all of a sudden, it's like, I love you. You're my soulmate. Like, what?
That was fast.
It was really fast. And I mean, Jenna's again, just since they had previously been in love, like it just feels a little bit more believable to me than the other ones. But yeah, it did. I think because there's all these other stories, then it does make them feel a little rushed. And I would say also, I wish that all of them, I felt like I wish that they'd had like another couple passes in the writing. Like they just
Mhm.
the writing was weak on all of them, but like the chemistry of the cast, the heart, behind it, like I still did overall enjoy it, but it's just a little frustrating when it's like I feel like feel like they were really close to being like a favorite, something I really loved, but it just wasn't quite there a lot of times in the writing. But it still was enjoyable.
Yeah, I agree. It could have spent some more time in the script stage
Yeah.
with sprucing things up, and there are just a lot
The
of little things.
conflict.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the stakes are really low to the point that they almost don't exist.
Hmm.
Um, and there are some, and we want low stakes, right? It's Hallmark,
Yeah.
but they can be too low to the point where it's like, I don't really care if they stay
Well, in
together or
the
not.
but then like when there's like big conflict, you're like, what? Why are you getting mad at him about this? Like, why are you upset about this? Like, it doesn't even like
Yeah, they
just
brush over
so
big things and get
yeah.
upset about weird small
If it
things.
was just like a hangout movie, like that's one thing, and I'm like fine with that. But
Mhm.
like the writing has to be, really good. So often in rom-coms, writers feel like, okay, we gotta have a conflict. And
Mhm.
I don't think that's necessarily true. Like you can have a movie where they're just like getting to know each other and they just fall in love. And there doesn't have to be like a big conflict to their love. They could just be like trying to find like a treasure or trying to I mean, I don't like party planning movies, but like they could just be have some mutual goal that they are,
Right.
movies have Save the Farm, movies, but like just something that they're working on together. It doesn't have to be a conflict.
Even just their own individual life
Yeah.
stuff, getting through it together.
Mm-hmm.
There's inherent drama also
Yeah.
when like two people who are together at the same time have like difficult things going on.
Yeah. I mean, and I
Um,
think the third one worked the best as far as conflict because, like the two teachers and then one wanting sports, one wanting band. And like that was like I thought that was probably the best conflict of the four.
yes, but then it was weaker in other areas too.
Yeah.
Like I didn't see any chemistry between those two.
No. Well,
And
the
also the conflict, it was like, well, if we say it enough times without giving any details about what's actually going on, then they'll
yeah,
believe us. And
right,
it's like,
right.
well, give me the like gritty details. Don't just keep repeating the same things.
Ho, ho, ho! We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind the scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
Somebody who's done foster care, is it common to have somebody like Angie in this movie who has like a lot of kids all at the same time, like a foster home in that way with like, a lot of kids that she's saying? Is that common?
Is it common? I guess it depends on how common is common. I mean, I
Mm,
think in any given like foster care system, foster care region, you have a couple of people like that.
hmm.
Like they certainly exist. Like when I went to foster care training, they had foster parents at different points in fostering come and talk to us. And
Okay.
one of them was a lady that like she and her partner had been fostering teenage girls for like years and years.
Wow.
And at any given time, they had like four kids in their house at one time. Um, and that's definitely a thing that happens. And those people are usually kind of like legendary to the social workers. Like they're the
Yeah.
tried and true. I think it would be unusual. I think the most unusual thing about the family dynamic is the siblings' connections to one another.
Mm,
Because they're connected in a way that it's like they grew up together.
yeah.
But like Jenna wasn't supposed to have entered care until she was like 13. I don't remember the ages of the other ones. I think that Josh was supposed to be, that's his name, right? Josh?
Gosh, yeah.
Yeah, he was supposed to be younger.
Mm, yeah.
Um,
Would you say there's any kind of average stay that a foster child will stay in a family, or is it just totally it just depends?
there's actual statistics on that, but it varies enough that like from one foster parent to another, you're gonna have pretty different experiences.
Hmm.
With my kids, one was a year and one was 2 years, 22
Wow.
months.
Like, how do you manage that emotionally? Like, you obviously become attached to somebody a year, two
Yeah,
years. Like, how do you
yeah.
deal with that?
It's really hard. It's really hard. I
Yeah.
mean, when they leave, you grieve it. It's a loss.
Yeah.
But it's kind of weird because they're like still alive.
Right.
Um, with one of my kids, I still have a small amount of contact with his parent.
Hmm.
Um, and that's really lovely and nice because I get to see pictures of him as he
Oh, that's
continues
good.
to grow up. Um, and like one of my kids, we intended to adopt and went into it thinking we were going to adopt this child, and then it did not work. And that was hard in a way that the other one wasn't because I knew from
Mm,
the beginning that it wasn't permanent.
hmm.
Like I knew this kid. It was a case where like I can't say too much about it, but it was not like an
Sure.
abuse neglect case.
Mm,
It was like a situation where the child shouldn't have been removed.
mm,
And CPS was not involved in the removal.
mm. So you
Um,
knew.
so I knew that he was going to go home. And um, that was really hard because I actually was maybe more attached to that kiddo in some ways. Partly because he'd been with us longer. He was with us almost 2 years. He's the one that was almost two
Mm,
years. Um, but also it's easier in a way because I can see pictures of him. Like I know
yeah,
I had some phone calls with him after he went home. Like
that's good. You don't have to worry.
I don't have to worry. My kids
Hmm.
were younger too, so like the kids in the movie are a little different because all were with Angie when they were teenagers
Hmm.
and then sort of like aged out of the system with her.
Yeah.
I do find it really odd that she didn't adopt any of them. Like Jenna's mom had died. There's also some weird stuff that it's like
Well, would she, I mean, not to be cynical, but like she wouldn't get paid by the state, right? If she adopted Jenna,
well, it depends on the
right?
state, etc.
Mm.
But I know in Washington you can get adoption assistance if you adopt a
Mm.
child from foster care.
Oh,
So if
okay.
you need continued support from the state, you can continue
Oh,
to
okay.
get that. So, um, some weird inconsistencies though, like it doesn't really make sense that Jenna went to foster care when her dad was like alive and
Well,
well and
yeah, so that comes out more in the fourth movie that
mm,
so like and her dad was not informed
yeah, that
at
doesn't
all.
make sense.
It doesn't make that really doesn't make sense. I mean, unless was he not on the birth certificate at all? He had no idea that she was born.
I guess that's possible.
Yeah.
But he it seems like when Angie went and talked to him, he knew about Jenna.
Well, and she recognized him. Sorry, we're jumping all around all these four
Oh, we
movies,
are.
but as soon as he was in the room, she immediately recognized him, which
Hmm.
surprised me a little bit because she never.
Yeah, and even in the picture, she was like, he looks really familiar. Like I
Yeah.
don't recognize him, but he's familiar to me.
So yeah, it's again not gritty realism in Hallmark
Not
movies,
gritty
but
realism. I wanted to have more of an angle because the
yeah,
angle to it to me seems like the person who wrote this is not probably not a foster kid or former foster youth.
yeah.
They're probably not a foster parent or a former foster parent. They're probably not a social worker because there were aspects of that too that didn't make any sense.
Well, and
And
if I was gonna offer like major critique, I would have had one more movie, so five movies, and have one of them be Angie's story. I feel like she's the one that we got to know the least, and I think it would have been like super cute if she'd had like a little love story, and then her whole family. The ending movie is like all of these wonderful, people that she's nurtured over is, coming together for like an Angie wedding would be like so fun.
that would be really lovely. And it does kind of pass over the fact that Angie's sole purpose for existing is to take care of these kids, is to take care of other
Yes,
people. And like I
yes,
want her to be able to be a person also and like have a person who's her
yeah.
partner, you know.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and it's also, I mean, it's kind of fun because, Mindy Cohn was on the Facts of Life, which,
Hmm.
so which had a similar premise to the show. So she gets to be I forget what the mom of the Facts of Life family, what her name was. But it's kind of fun that, she gets to sort of play this role uh all these years later, but I just felt like they underused her because they could
Hmm.
have given her an arc. She really had no arc except for to like apologize to Jenna about her dad. There were like things like that, but I think it would have been fun for her to get like a real story.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. It would have been really nice for her to get a whole story. And I want there to be like what it feels like to me is this was written by someone who's like outside the foster care system.
Yeah.
It's like one of those people that would come up to me and be like, "Oh, I've thought about doing foster care. I think it's so nice and lovely." And
Yeah.
it's like, "Okay, but like why?" You know? But
Yeah.
it's just like, "Oh, this is a nice thing that people do and it helps
Mhm.
kids." But it's like,
Well,
"Okay, I want more
it's Mrs. Garrett. That was the name of the
Mrs.
mom
Garrett."
in
Yeah, you're
Facts
right.
of Life.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I love Mrs. Garrett.
And so uh that would have been fun. And yeah, I mean, I feel like it's either sort of like this idealized version or like kind of scary. So it would have been nice if there was like a little more nuance. Just like I said, the writing wasn't
Yeah.
quite there
Hmm.
in any of these, just the way they were talking and like the way like the plot would jump ahead to things and you're like,
Hmm.
what's happening here? And they were just trying to balance so much. I'm sure it was tough, but I do think that this pairing of in the first one, Jenna and Drew, I think that these two actors, Ashley Newbrow and Steve Lund, had the best chemistry of any of the pairings.
Oh, for sure. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, they definitely had the best chemistry.
Hmm.
I agree with you. It just needed a little more time. It needed like maybe another um like a little bit of workshopping.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
And I should say, so the second movie, the Sherry's Second Chance, our second
mhm.
act, that one we did the Mahogany ladies, they did a whole deep dive into that
Oh, nice.
movie. Yeah. And so we won't spend as much time on that. But if you want to hear, it's a really fun episode. They're hilarious. And so you should check that out. But this Jenna's First Love, like they both get hired. Jenna and Drew get hired to plan this charity event, this party thing. And so they have to
That's like
work
a
to
fundraiser, I think.
yeah, fundraiser. And they had they had dated in high school, but like or they had this relationship in high school, but then things had fallen apart, and so they had missed their chance at love, and so that's kind of your plot. But now they have to work together, even though they start out not liking each other because of this history. I think that just this romance in general, I think worked the best of any of them.
Uh, yeah, I agree. And he like the tension in it felt a little bit more like legitimate in this one.
Uh-huh.
Like she has one idea and he has a different idea and he kind of ignores her idea and they go and she kind of goes along to get along kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Um, and he ends up kind of eating crow and like
Well, and then
apologizing and
he also like so there's this guy who they're like trying to impress, and she kind of goes on a date with him, and that makes him like jealous, and I liked seeing him jealous. That was sort of fun.
yeah, that
Like
was nice.
you can go on a wine tasting with anyone you want. That was sort of fun. He's grumpy, and then I thought it was unreasonable when she takes him to Sunday supper and everybody's like super passive aggressive, like at the dinner. Then
Yeah.
and I was like, I don't feel like these are all adults. I don't feel like they would be that invested in Jenna's kind of maybe high school romance that they're going to treat this man at Sunday supper so rudely.
It was a little confusing too, the way that they presented the information about her high school romance with him
Yes, it
because
was.
she tells Rory he was a guy I liked in high school, but he didn't like me back. But then in other parts, it's really clear that they actually had a relationship and that then he left without saying goodbye or something.
Yeah, uh she's like, "Why did you ghost me after high school?" And
Hmm.
then he's like, "Oh, I was jealous of your family because my family isn't loving, isn't kind." And but I just don't feel like her family would be all like, I can't remember exactly what they said, but it was just very like, I could pass you the I could pass you the salad if you were nice to my sister. It's just like very like, well, like I just don't feel like they would be that way.
Like it
Um
all feels a little more fresh than it should be at their
yeah,
ages.
yeah, yeah. Like I'm exaggerating, but that was the just the feeling at dinner was very tense amongst
I
all the
don't think you really
siblings.
were exaggerating. I think something very similar to that actually
No,
occurred.
it's very
Sherry in particular was
yeah,
like
she
really
was
mad about it to
yeah.
the point that I was like, what else happened? Like something else happened here.
Yeah.
What is she so mad about?
Uh-huh.
But nothing. There was nothing.
Yeah.
She just had a chip on her shoulder about it.
And then he overhears the sisters talking, and they're all like, "Oh, but what about Tom? Tom's the other guy. Yeah, you should why not explore that? He's hunky and all this stuff." And so uh he's like, and then he's jealous of that. And so it was it's like I said, it just needed like another pass. Like that could have been fun, him overhearing, but like it was
Mhm.
just a little too early. It didn't quite make sense with what we know about the characters.
Do you know what watching these reminded me of a little? Have you ever been to a preview night of like a play?
Yeah.
And think the timing just isn't quite right in
Yeah.
places and things just don't quite land. It
Yeah.
reminded me a little bit of that. Like,
Yeah, I think that's a good comparison because I like I said, I felt like if they just had it had the feeling of like just a couple more passes and this would be like, wow, I love this. This is so charming. This is so, but it just
uh-huh.
wasn't quite there.
Yeah, like on the preview night, you're like, man, I should really come back when they're not previewing anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that just happened to me. And they were so nice to let me come to a preview of this. Saw this Guys and Dolls. And because we had my dad's 70th birthday, I was like, I'm not going to be able to be there. And so, can I come to the preview night? Super nice of them to let me come. But and it was luckily a show with a long run.
Mm.
So the final weekend, I was finally able to. This was like 6 weeks later. It was a long run, and I was finally able to go see see the actual show. And it was really fun to actually, okay, this is how it's supposed to be.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can kind of tease apart like, oh, what just needed more time to
Yeah.
incubate
Right.
and
Yeah.
what was legitimately a shortcoming of the cast or the
Yeah.
director or
It
whatever.
was interesting. It was definitely very interesting. I also liked the way they did sort of the texting, particularly in this first one between the siblings.
Hmm.
And that was kind of fun the way they had it. And like the banter between them was probably the strongest writing that they
Hmm.
had. I liked that.
Yeah, the
And
group chat could have been a more central thing in the show, I think.
yeah, it's a lot in this first one. We don't see it as much in the others, but I
I wish
liked
they'd
that.
drawn it through more.
Yeah, me too. So then she ends up having this conversation with Drew, that he's like that I needed a constant in my life. He says something like that, and she's like, you just don't get it, do you? I would have been that constant in your life. So he's like, whoa. And then she goes to the wine tasting with Tom. He gets real jealous, and he broke up with her because of his mom. That's what he said. Jenna's the love of my life, or was. I only broke up with her because of my mom. Her mom's like really judgy, doesn't want him dating a foster kid or something.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because he characterizes like he tells her all of this. But then when we meet the mom, she's actually pretty nice and like really open to Angie and
Yeah,
like kind of into their whole family thing.
yeah. So he's going to tell her how he feels, but then they get interrupted by this car. And we also have Angie say no kid is too much trouble, which was sweet. And and the kid Rory, he runs away because he's worried that he'll get sent back for bad grades.
Hmm.
And I'm sure that I can imagine that there's all kinds of anxieties, with foster kids, insecurity. That's got to be a thing. So, that's with Rory. And then she says, no kid is too much trouble,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah, that's one thing that I think they actually could have played up more is um like transitioning into a new foster placement is really difficult.
Uh-huh.
And it takes a little time to really like get to know the kid because often they're either like super shy and withdrawn, those first few days, those first week or two, or sometimes they'll be like super compliant and helpful and chipper, because they want to make sure that you're going to be nice to them.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of different responses, but we didn't really get to see any of those, even though Rory was, we actually, in the, over the course of the series, in this episode, it was supposed to be Rory was a new placement for
Yeah.
Andy.
And then Gina.
And then we get Gina in
Yeah.
Josh's movie.
Hmm.
And we didn't really see too much of that, like, transitional anxiety that I think could have been played up in, again, in subtle
Yeah.
ways that probably would have come out in another
Hmm.
revision.
Yeah. So then we have he thinks that she's going on a date, that she's interested. And then Tom offers Drew a job, and then he's talking to, I forget who it was, but they says, since when do you give up so easily? And have you actually told Jenna how you feel? And he's like, oh no, I didn't really. So we also, she's definitely portrayed as sort of like she's a little bit lost to business at the beginning. She's working on Sunday. She's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
she's like overdoing it.
yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, if she didn't need to have a tie to this place, she would be a classic girl of the city who's lost her way, has to come
Hmm.
back to the country.
Totally, totally.
Yeah. But that's their thing. Oh, she has to work on Sundays, so she's a little bit lost. And then the new policy, I'm not going to work on Sundays. And he gets Rory a laptop, and they get together at the end, and it's cute. And Our best years are yet to come. And he says, "You listened. You do still love me." I'd like to take a second to thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's If Tomorrow Never Comes by Allison Ashley. This is the new novel that introduces us to Elliot Holland, who decides to live it up on the eve of a stem cell transplant to treat her leukemia. It's destiny when she crosses paths with handsome and charming Jamie Sullivan. The chemistry is magic, so is a beautiful evening that ends with a bittersweet kiss goodbye and no expectations of ever seeing each other again. But 1 year later, their paths cross again, and it's a lot of fun to see what is going to happen. If Tomorrow Never Comes by Allison Ashley is the perfect emotional and heartfelt title for your April TBR. It's a deeply romantic read for those wanting a love story about the right person, but maybe the wrong time, cross paths, and fated mates. Available to order now through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Bookshop, or your local bookstore, or use the affiliate link below. That's If Tomorrow Never Comes by Allison Ashley. Check it out today. Sherry's movie, it's, well, like I said, we'll just kind of be quick on this one because they already talked about it in the other episode. But the best part about this movie, I think by far, was the beginning with all of them at the airport.
Mm-hmm.
You
That
think
was really
so?
cool.
Nobody's here to pick me up from the airport. And then she goes outside and they're all there with the signs and stuff. It was really cute.
Yeah, that was really cute. That was really cute and nice. At first, I was like mad at first. I was like,
Yeah.
what the heck? Josh is a piece of trash.
Yeah. Well, it's like there's a very funny episode of Seinfeld where it's all about like he starts becoming starts a bromance with I can't remember, it's a famous baseball player, and they're all, I forget who it is, but anyway, Yankee player, and all of the team, the group are all making fun of him because he's like he's so, Twitter pated, for lack of a better word, with this guy, and like, "You're picking him up from the airport, aren't you?" "No, I'm not picking him up from the airport." "Not picking him up from the airport." And that, because that's like the ultimate side of true love, is the ride from the airport.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. The ride to the airport.
So
That's funny.
but yeah, it was really cute, that whole. And
I
I first
actually really liked, I think her and was it Evan? Was that his
Evan,
name?
yeah.
They were my second favorite couple behind Josh and Jenna.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the
Or
writing
not
was
Josh, Andrew and
Andrew,
Jenna.
yeah.
Yeah.
The writing for them was, I think, weak, but the personal actors chemistry, because I
Hmm.
think, because this is I think I mean, they've done another movie together, and so I think that's why
Mhm.
and it is kind of funny, they both have the same last name, both those actors.
Oh, they
Just
do?
randomly, yeah, they're
Oh, that's
both
funny.
Morgan, Brendan Morgan and Michelle Morgan, which is kind of funny. I got to interview Brendan, and that was super funny. It was great, and he is an extremely attractive man. I mean,
I was gonna
everybody
say
is,
he's
but
attractive.
he is
He was the most
really,
attractive one, I thought.
yeah, no question. And he is very, I mean, Hallmark should schedule him in. He should be in a lot. And especially because he has football experience. Now they're starting to do these football movies. They're the Buffalo Bills, they just announced. They did the Chiefs last year. He would be perfect for something like that,
Oh, yeah, totally.
you know?
That's fun.
Yeah. So, and it's really been a shame because, Hallmark was doing pretty well with more diversity the before the strike, and they had this Mahogany series that they were doing, which was at least like once a quarter. But you could tell that they started out the Mahogany putting a lot of investment into it, a lot of money into it. And I'm sure that it just didn't do as well as they would have hoped for whatever reason. Because then they
Mhm.
started to get cheaper and cheaper, and you could tell they were just purchasing these movies, and they were weak, and the acting was weak. And like, honestly, there were a bunch, probably for a year, that were worse than what you would get from like a Tyler Perry movie. Like those
Oof.
Like I would expect better from BT or some of these other like real low budget. Like Hallmark has more of a budget
Hmm.
than some of these other brands. And so it's like it's frustrating because it's like, yeah, the series started to do poorly, but you also didn't help it by making really bad, like putting out bad stuff, so you can't blame, oh, people don't want like diverse content, but why would they like that when it's not good,
Well, and it takes a while for
it does.
people from a marginalized group to trust that you're really going to do what you're pretending
Yeah.
you're doing. And you have to stick with it for the long haul and show them like
Yeah.
this isn't lip service. We're not with you just when things are easy. Like we're really doing this and we're committed
Yeah,
to
that's
this. And it
true.
takes time.
That's true. So anyway, that it was refreshing that they even had Sherry and Evan at all in this
Hmm.
because we just have not been getting much. I think there was one one movie in all of the Christmas movies that had both black leads. One. I think there was one. There were a couple other mixed, um but there's just barely anything this last Christmas season from, and not just Hallmark, from all of them. And
Hmm.
the big excuse was because of the strike. They just had less to choose from. If you accept that or not, who knows? But it was nice to see them this casting.
It's surprising to me that they don't do as well because when I'm surfing through like looking for, some kind of like cozy, wholesome movie to watch, when I see a white woman, especially if she has like light brown to blonde hair,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of that like curly that wavy pattern, and a white dude on the cover, there's like 7,000 of them and I cannot tell them apart, you
Yeah,
know?
that's it's true. They do kind of stick out a little bit more. Like they do kind of make an impression. I can see that, when they're different.
Yeah,
But
when there's diversity on
yeah,
the cover, I'm a lot more likely to like stop and look at it because I'm like, oh,
hmm,
maybe this is slightly different than
yeah.
the usual fare.
So it was a win to have Sherry and Evan in this series, in this movie, and I would say to Hallmark, use them more. They're both
Mhm.
good. They both have potential, and so that's what I would say.
Yeah, I personally would like to see more of that. I did really appreciate in
Yeah.
Jenna's movie, disability representation.
Mm-hmm.
Her assistant was like a wheelchair user.
Yeah, that's true.
And they didn't like it wasn't a thing. It wasn't
Yeah.
inspiration porn. It wasn't that her whole personality was that she was disabled
Hmm.
or in a wheelchair. It was just this is my assistant who happens to be
Yeah.
in a wheelchair. And that was
Yeah.
cool. They handled that
I
really well.
love that. Like in Notting Hill, it's been always one little thing that I love in Notting Hill is when they go to his sister's for a birthday party and his friend is in a wheelchair. And it's just like not a thing. And she's lovely and they have a birthday party just like anything else. But I always like it's like a little detail that you almost never see.
Yeah, it's so rare. Like, um, minority racial inclusion is not where it should be,
Hmm.
but disability representation falls far behind that even.
Right. Yeah,
So
that
that
makes
was nice to
sense.
see.
Yeah. So they have this like he is opening this the studio, the shared space where they can all show
Co-op.
their co-op. Yeah, they can. There's a shared space. She's just come back from a divorce. Her ex-husband's in Singapore. She has a lot of issues. But they kind of he's like loud because he's doing construction on the shared space and she's trying to paint. She can't paint, has like painter's block, if that's a thing. And and so that they sort of meet with like a little bit of conflict, but then he takes her antiquing, and evidently that's the thing. That's the thing to her heart. Because they fall pretty quick. She's into it.
Yeah, that's true. They go pretty immediately from like, you're
Mhm.
annoying and I don't. Although when they first meet, she's like, oh, she accidentally called him like, oh, are you the hot the handyman.
Yeah.
Like she
Which,
very
I
clearly
mean,
thought he
can
was
you blame her? I mean, he really is like,
he's a very attractive
yeah,
man.
yeah, he really is. And so then there's also this whole thing with his grandma and her paintings, and they try to buy one of the paintings at the auction, and they don't they don't get it, so he's really sad about that. And then um she also buys Kiki the ugliest painting I've ever seen in my life of this cat.
That
It
was
was
so strange.
it was so ugly. Like what? And I mean, usually in the Hallmark, I'm surprised she wasn't a photographer because that's usually the
Yeah.
go-to, creative career that somebody has. But she was a painter. And man, they were able to paint those self-portraits and paintings of each other awfully fast. She
Yeah.
got that painting of
That's
him, and he took her to like wine and paint night,
hmm
and she paints this painting of him at wine and paint night. I'm like, wow, that's
It's like
fast.
it's not just like, those paint and sips. It's usually like a fairly basic
Yeah.
thing that you're painting. This is like an intensely
I
like
mean, she's a
detailed.
professional, so she would be able to get more done than the average paint and sip
Sure.
person. But still, it was quite a bit for one night. It's impressive.
I bought his painting of her being done in that one night a lot more than I bought her
Yeah.
painting done that one
Yeah.
night.
So then, and so you two make a good pair. Oh, it's very cute. And then she does all these self portraits because she's figuring out who she is and what she wants and everything. And then he's like, I'm gonna move. He might move.
That's
And so that then becomes this conflict. And she's like, I want you to stay. And then she says, this is my dream job. All I'm missing is you. So wow, that was fast. And then so the foster home, I was a little bit confused. So somebody else buys the painting, but that's not the same painting that was at the foster home, right? Because she's like, "Oh, look, Angie had your grandma's painting all this time."
yeah. So what painting sold? Is it the grandma's painting that sold?
It was one. See, I wasn't sure if it was the same painting, and there were like multiple. Maybe this was like, what do they say? This was a study of, how sometimes they'll
Oh
have that
yeah.
like,
Uh-huh. Where it's like the same subject but slightly differently
yeah. I don't know how
painted.
into how the grandma, is, but anyway, so the foster family have his grandma's painting, one of them that they've had all this time. And so when he sees that, it means a lot to him. And he's like, now you're my soulmate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they end with,
Yeah.
I love you, when they had just literally the scene before been like, you need to move, you need to do what you got to do. And it was extremely rushed. And it's interesting because you can tell this whole series wasn't actually made by Hallmark. You can tell they purchased it from a distributor because that's kind of an old school thing. Is that Hallmark used to feel like, oh, we got to end every movie with the "I love you,"
Hmm.
but they've moved away from that. They don't feel that necessarily. And I mean, I think it would have been just as cute at the end of this to have been like, let's go antiquing again. Will you be my date for another antiquing? Or something like that. Like that would have been cute without saying I love you.
Yeah, there are plenty of ways to tell the audience that they have a future
Yeah.
without,
Especially because there are going to be two other movies where they could pepper it in.
oh, there's going to be, oh, from that point.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a
Uh-huh.
3 and a 4 that they could have a little scene with them saying I love you.
Yeah. I mean, there was no reason. I mean, they did at least hold off on Jenna and Drew's engagement till
Yeah.
this was it the second movie that they got engaged?
Um, third, I think it's the third one. Let's
I
see
watched
here.
them out a little bit out of order, I think. think.
Yeah. Yes. So they get engaged at the Steve proposes at Sunday supper in the third one.
Okay,
They
okay.
do kind of mesh together. I so yes, so that one was interesting. Sherry's. So then Josh's. So in this one we have Josh. He's a teacher. He uh he is also the track coach. And then we have Ella, who is the band. She's the English teacher and band instructor, correct?
Yeah.
And yeah, and so basically, like both of their departments are failing. They're not doing well, and they have particularly Ella's kids are in this like moldy, horrible
That was kind
space.
of funny to me because, okay, so I guess at this school, band is like an after school activity, not a class.
Yeah,
And the room, she keeps showing people pictures of it,
and they're all like, "This is horrible,
and
horrible."
they're all like, this is awful. But I'm like, it really just looks like it needs to be tidied up to me.
Yeah,
Like, this does not look like a room that smells like mold.
yeah. I mean, because they just kept, they just kept saying that. Yeah, oh, it smells, and
Right. There were a few things. Like, I think each movie had maybe one thing that they were just kind of like, if we beat this drum enough times, then people will believe it.
yeah. And so they're coming up against each other, and she immediately doesn't like him because he's like a jock and he's like the sports guy and he's like threatening her kids and them getting the funding, and
Mhm.
there's this like alumni group which is like super snobby. This
Mhm.
alumni group, you think it was like Harvard or something, but they are working to try to first they present to the PTA, but then they're like they get rejected, and then they have the alumni group that they can present to, and they kind of rivals in that way.
Yeah, it seems like the alumni group is really just the one guy.
Yeah, it did kind of seem that way, didn't it?
Like, he kind of makes unilateral decisions.
The soup does.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
I mean, I guess that's probably somewhat true in a
Yeah, you're
small
probably
thing,
right.
but
The
but
richest guy in the
still,
alumni group is the one who gets to make all the
yeah.
decisions.
So Gina becomes a character in this one. She's new, and there's sort of this struggle with her about ADHD. And should she get diagnosed? Should she not get diagnosed? Is it going to is the diagnosis going to make it harder for her in school or easier for her in school? How did you think that they handled that whole situation?
I thought it was fine. I didn't see
Mm-hmm.
anything inherently wrong. I thought it was interesting to bring that conversation to this context because it certainly
Mm-hmm.
is a conversation, and like there's a lot of discourse, I guess, around foster kids and medication, and because foster kids are medicated at way higher rates than other
Mm-hmm.
kids,
Yeah.
um, with behavioral health medications. But a lot of that is because they're really traumatized, and to function, they need some help that
Yeah.
kids who haven't been through those same things probably don't need. Um, and I thought there was actually some nuance to that conversation,
Mm-hmm.
which I
Well,
thought
and
was
also like it's got to be a struggle for a parent to know, okay, like how much is the like struggle like good for the kid, in helping them to
Mhm,
actually like learn and grow and become and their unique self, like how much do we sort of
mhm,
minimize that struggle, and like how much do we help them like I think there's a balance. I mean, I had just some dyslexic
yeah.
tendencies growing up, and I never got diagnosed, but I'm positive I would have if I had gone through that process. But even I kind of think back, I'm like, was that struggle of being a little different and having to figure things out my own way, was that good for me? I don't know. There were times when it was definitely a challenge, But and even I right now I'm a special ed teacher, and can even kind of see some of those things happening with some of the kids, and that balance is tricky.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's definitely a tipping point, right? Where it's like this struggle is too painful. Like the
Yeah,
kid is giving up
yeah.
because it's too hard and they can't
Hmm.
do it.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I appreciated that they brought it to the screen, and there was actually nothing super, I mean, it's really easy to get into problematic territory when you're
Hmm.
talking about learning disabilities and foster kids and medication.
Yeah.
Um, and
And
I didn't,
it wasn't steeped in trauma, because even on Hallmark, sometimes when you have like an autistic representation, it can be treated as if like it's worse than death. Like it's this horror
mm,
to be, oh my God, I have an autistic kid. It's this like lots of tears. I'm not saying it's not difficult,
mhm.
challenging. I get that. But like sometimes it can just be a little soaked in trauma.
Yeah, and it gets too focused on like, it can easily be too focused on like the parents' response to it rather
Yeah,
than like how the
that's
actual
true.
kid is affected. They did a good job of centering the kid herself and like
Yeah.
giving her some autonomy in what she wanted.
Yeah.
And they actually handled it surprisingly well.
Yeah. But I do think that that in the like rivalry between Ella and Josh, I think Josh, I would be like team Josh. Like, I mean, if you're talking about an elementary or middle school, it was like a middle school, that candy bars versus a book swap. I mean, come on. You're gonna
Yeah,
do better with the candy bars.
yeah, that's fair enough. Although his original idea was like a raffle for a teddy bear, which
Yeah, oh yeah, that's
was
true.
pretty terrible.
And she did have the bake sale that she did. So I guess there's that. But
Yeah.
I felt like he had more like reasonable, effective ideas than she had.
Yeah, you're right about that.
So they're like, why don't we collab between programs? The most cringy part about this movie was when Steve is trying to get inspiration of where he should propose. And they had that horrible green screen section where, oh, look, I'm all of a sudden in front of the Washington Monument. And
That part was embarrassing.
it
It was
was
honestly
bad. It
embarrassing.
was really, really bad, and unnecessary. Like you really didn't need it. You could have just had like generic park. Like, should I
Hmm.
propose in a park? You have generic fancy restaurant. Should I propose in a fancy restaurant? You didn't need it to be the Washington Monument, you know?
Right. And a hot air balloon and like
Yeah. You
yeah,
could have
that went a little harder than it needed to.
yeah. Yeah. Or like you could have easily had like one of the options be it like an arena. So you have arena shot. You have one option, be it a fancy restaurant, generic fancy restaurant. And
Hmm.
because obviously this is in Toronto, I think it's where it's filmed. And so you could just have generic restaurant, generic arena, generic park.
They
It would
could
have been
even just be
exactly
like
the
seated
same.
at the table and he has like a bunch of pamphlets that he's showing her,
Yeah, that could have
you
worked
know.
too.
What they
But
did was pretty funny though.
yeah. So then basically uh he's talking to this alumni person, and the alumni is like, oh well, I love tracks, so I'm gonna give you the money. We don't even need to listen to this music person. But he doesn't realize that that means they're like completely canceling. He wanted it to be both of them. And then he finds out, oh, it's a one or the other situation. So then Ella gets upset, and then he says, I can't say no to the donation because I'm falling in love with the music teacher. It was cute. It was a cute
Yeah.
moment.
Hmm.
And it's interesting with, I think this is I can't think of another rom-com Hallmark movie where the lead protagonist is a man. That is
That's true.
extremely
That's super
unusual.
rare.
very
Hmm.
rare. So that was fun. I feel like Jake Epstein has had really bad luck. He's so charming and but this is fine. And he's had some fine movies, but like he's done a lot of Hallmark movies to this point, and he has not made, I don't think, any that I love. Um,
Tragic. He
it's
was
never,
really sweet as he's Josh, yes.
yeah, yeah. And I never go away feeling like it's his fault, but I don't know. I do. I feel like he's gotten some bad luck. I'm like, I think this project. But he's very charming. I don't think that he had very good chemistry with Stephanie Bennett, who I also really love. And Stephanie Bennett was in best friend territory for a long time. And it's only
Mm.
been the last couple of years that they gave her the bump. So I'm happy for her for that. But yeah, the chemistry wasn't great between them.
Yeah, it was not very good. I liked each of them individually. I liked each of their characters, honestly. Like, they were both sweet characters that I felt endeared to,
Yeah.
but I just wasn't particularly rooting for them as a couple.
Yeah. So then he tells Mr. Supta that he's not going to accept it. It has to be both or none. And he's like, "Well, I'm going to pass then." You're like, "Oh, what a mean man." And then we don't see very much Sherry and Ethan in this one, barely at all.
Mm.
Just it's at Sunday suppers. They're there at the end, and then you see Gina. She has a fidget toy. She's been diagnosed, which is again very nice, I think. And then her grandma. So her grandma doesn't want to sign the permission form for her to get tested.
Mhm.
And I felt like that was a little ridiculous that they would require that they would not see Angie as the guardian.
So that actually is kind of tricky. The real kind of bumble in that is that there's no like social worker or anything. You get this initial like court order. It's like a judge's order that says the child is being placed with you. And that lets you register them for school and take them to the doctor's office and do all these things. But there are certain things that they have to go to the biological parents for.
Mm.
And usually the social worker handles that, like you don't personally have to go. And usually it's not a big deal. The social worker goes to the parents, they're like, hey, this is a thing. And the parents are like, cool, I'll sign it. Sometimes with stuff like ADHD, you do actually get some resistance.
Hmm.
Because to even, I don't know if there's like, if it depends on the parent's status or if it has to do with how long they've been in care. But I know I couldn't give kids medication.
Mm.
Uh, we couldn't get it prescribed without the parents' consent.
Huh, that's interesting. I didn't
Yeah,
know.
behavioral health meds in particular, at least in my state. So that is
Mhm.
a thing that happens. And I think they just did it the way they did it to kind of bring that to the front so that like
Mhm.
Angie's involved,
Yeah.
all these
So
things.
they get the grandma there at Sunday supper, and then the alumni changes their mind, of course,
Hmm.
and we get Steve. That we get um why did I say Steve?
Is it Andrew?
Andrew. I don't know why I wrote Steve. Um oh, because Steve Lund. That's why I did that, because that's the actor's name.
Funny.
So Andrew proposes at Sunday supper, and that was fun. After that was the fun plot. Like I said, they were the best couple by
Hmm.
far. But
For
that
sure.
was a fun plot between them of like him going, even though it looked terrible, where how should I propose, kind of thing,
Mhm.
and then ending up at Sunday supper, which of course that would be the most meaningful
Yes.
to her. So that was good. And then we have we have Josh asking Ella to be a plus one at the wedding, and that's where they should have ended it. We did not need an I love you. That was way too soon. They should have just ended
Hmm.
with them like, oh, we're gonna go on a date.
That would be a logical place
Yeah,
to call it a day. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
Then the last one, Kiki's fourth ingredient. So Catherine Davis, we love her. She's a friend of the podcast. Been on a bunch of times. She's just super great. And they had her with Torrance Coombs playing Clay, this fancy chef. She's a food truck chef, and I do feel like Catherine has gotten some kind of bad luck with a lot of her Hallmark ones. This one was okay. It was cute, but she's like, her non-Hallmark movies have been so good that it's a little frustrating because I'm like, oh, I wish. But yeah, she has one called Christmas on Fifth Avenue that I absolutely, it's one of my like favorite Christmas movies.
Oh,
I
have to check that out.
yeah, you should check it. It's really good. But anyway, it's just kind of like, oh, I wish that she got as quality outside of Hallmark as I wish she got as much quality inside Hallmark as she's getting outside Hallmark. But
Yeah.
I thought this one was like pretty cute. Like, it was nice because you had all the wedding prep, which was fun. For
Yeah,
like,
the
her
wedding prep
with her
was cute and
dress.
fun. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's completely ridiculous that it's just completely ridiculous that Jenna wouldn't like want to know what was being served at her wedding. And that like even a week before, several days, to have no idea what you're going to serve. You have to order food. You have to like, it's not, I mean, she and acting like she can serve and cook 100 people out of her little food truck, and to like, and her being kind of a brat about it, about wanting help and everything. It's just like, you're not making sense. Like it's not reasonable.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
It was really weird. I like, I mean, they were trying to make him be like, oh, he's the professional, she's the food truck, which could have been cute. But like, again, like, because Jenna is an active character in this story, like she would want some say in like what was being served and what was being ordered. And, like, I don't think most people are just like, just make make whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
For their wedding.
Yeah. I also think it's kind of interesting that Jenna would have asked her to even do that.
Yeah, and I feel like you would even be more concerned and careful if it's her first time ever catering anything. You would be like, are you sure you're okay? What are we going to have? You would like be extra proactive. Whereas like if it's somebody, this is like their 9 to 5, they're a whole catering operation, you might be more like, I'm just going to let them do their thing. But you wouldn't want your sister to be embarrassed, and you would want food at your wedding. So
yeah, my understanding too is of the adult siblings, she's supposed to be like the youngest, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And her character reads kind of like immature. Like,
yeah. Well, we do have her with talking to Gina and saying that she has ADHD also.
Oh, yeah.
So that might be part of it. But I mean, like, I don't mind if characters make stupid decisions, but they still have to like abide by some degree of logic within the story. They have to be like, okay, that was a reasonable choice, even if it was foolish for that character to make within a story. And her choices so often were just completely unreasonable. Like, you would never do that. You would like, if you're feeding 100 people, you would have to have some kind of menu and you have to order the food. Like,
well, and it's interesting too, because Jenna's Jenna does events. That's like her thing.
That's true. I forgot about that.
She
Yeah,
knows what it takes to
you're
do that.
right.
It seems
Yeah,
like she would be like, "Oh, I understand you're going to need some staff for this.
yeah,
Like,
you're
let me
right.
know how many you need and we'll hire them."
Yeah, and she would probably even have caterers that she uses for events and stuff. I forgot about that, that she was also in
Yeah, she'd
events.
have
Yeah.
access to like wait staff and sous chefs and
That's
that kind
true.
of thing.
That's a good
So
point.
it's kind of weird that it was just like, "Hey, sister, can you do this?" The
Yeah.
thing that's totally like unreasonable for you to do.
Yeah. And what's interesting is the promos for this, I felt like I don't know how old Catherine Davis is, but it felt like Torrance was way older in the promos. In the actual movie, I didn't mind the age gap, and I don't know how much of an age gap there actually is, but he is 41, and I don't think she's close. I think she's quite a
There's
bit
no
younger
way
than
she's in
that.
her 40s. Yeah.
No, no way. Um, it didn't bother me that much. I was able to sort of, he's like the silver fox, he's like, and he was pretty charming. Um, they had better, I guess I was going into it being like, oh, these two are not going to have very good chemistry, but she's very good at building chemistry with everybody she works with. Um, she has a gift for that as an actress, I think. So it worked well enough for me, the two of them.
It was fine. That was one that I was kind of like, I just don't like their individual characters. I'm like, I don't see it. Like, I don't
Yeah,
see them
it
being
did.
together.
Well, because he did read a lot older than her to me.
He did, and he's kind of a square, and she's not.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I was like, I'm not sure what the appeal of him would be. Like they did, I mean, yeah, she did some heavy lifting there, acting
Yeah,
wise.
I agree. Uh,
Um, and made it work, but I was just kind of like, what? What?
well, and she's like all upset with him for hiring this Crystal for the rehearsal dinner,
Hmm.
and then she gets all upset, and also when he is uh introducing her to everybody, she feels like he is kind of dismissive of her food truck and what she's doing. She says,
Yeah,
I'm mad at you for not having my back when Crystal was making fun of her truck,
that's valid.
my truck. So, yeah. You just don't get to show up in my life when you want. Or no, that's what Jenna says about her dad. So that was also a plot in this. At the beginning, she asks Angie to walk her down the aisle. Angie gives Jenna her mom's jewelry
Mhm.
at the beginning. There's a picture with her father. I guess she might have recognized him from that picture. I forgot that, but
Oh, that's true.
yeah. So she doesn't know. She's never met her father, and when Angie finds she finds the father, tries to arrange all of this, and it ends up kind of going badly because she's upset. You just don't get to show up in my life when you want.
The it actually feels like a huge misstep on Angie's part
Mm-hmm.
to go to the biological dad without consulting Jenna. Like that's a
Yeah,
really big thing for people who have had like a major separation from their parents as a young person. Like as adults, they need to be in charge of what contact they have and when.
yeah, that
And
makes
it
sense.
didn't vibe to me because Angie is like this super experienced foster parent. By and large, they've written her as being like relatively trauma informed, and lets kids kind of take the lead on
Yeah,
things. And it's weird to me. Like it didn't quite vibe to me as a mistake that she would make.
yeah, it's true. I agree, and she does apologize, but yeah, it does seem like she would be very sensitive to those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And then her dad says it wasn't my decision, but everything turned out okay. So then she asked the dad to walk her down the aisle with Angie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And also so the the big kind of evolving for Kiki is she decides that she's going to serve everything family style, which makes sense if you're a pizza, doing pizza.
For sure.
I mean, I guess you can have like little like bagel bites or like little pizzas, but for the most part, it's going to be
I mean, are
like
you going to really
family
bring it
style.
out to them on a plate, one slice at a time?
Yeah, exactly. You have to do pizza buffet, but or family style, one or the other. Since that's her food truck, that's natural. What she would gravitate towards
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
pizza, and so there was like a cute moment. I love what I call a subtle handhold
Mm.
at the pantry. And then she just puts her
Mhm.
in oh, I'll put my hand right on top of yours.
Uh-huh.
That was really
Uh-huh.
cute. That was really cute. Everything at the pantry was cute.
Hmm.
And she says that, oh, Martha is your Angie, the lady who runs the pantry.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that
Hmm.
was nice. And yeah, and then like I said, everything kind of so we get the wedding. The wedding's really nice, and she did look absolutely gorgeous in that wedding dress. It was a really nice wedding dress, and the whole wedding was really nice and swoony, and then they get Kiki inside because she's outside working on the food, and they're like, Jenna needs you. And Kiki talks to Jenna and says, your trials brought you here, which was a nice moment between them.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we get the wedding, and there's like this long flashback montage of like the highlights of these siblings. And I felt like it was a little self-indulgent. I mean, there's been 4 movies. It's not like it's been like a multi-season arc or something like that. It's like a
Yeah.
little like,
I think it's enough to just show us the siblings
yeah,
as they are right now, enjoying
yeah,
one another.
yeah. It was a little ridiculous. And thank you for everything. Thank you for dreaming big. And then we get this moment between them outside between Clay and Kiki. I see spending my whole life with you. Uh that and I'm in love with you. And you're just like, wow, 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 wow.
Red alert. Red alert.
Really. It's too much. It's too fast. I think it would have been cute of like he could have said something like, the food pantry needs an extra set of hands next weekend. Oh, that'd be fun to go together. Let's do it. There you
Right.
go.
Lead
Yeah,
us
and
to
they
the next thing
like
they're gonna
they could
do.
even have like a little kiss, like, oh, this would be fun. Walk away holding hands. That'd be cute. You don't need to have the I love you.
Yeah. The I love
Um,
you even is like too much. It's too far.
yeah, it is. I mean, unless you're going to make the only way to do the I love you fast, I think that works if it's like fools rush in, like a really fast, like that's part of the plot is that, okay, these people got together
I was
quickly.
gonna say, if you're gonna make it about lesbians and they go on a first date and they
Yes.
stay on that first date for like 48 hours,
Uh huh.
then at the end of that first date, they say, I love you. Yes.
Yes.
That's a thing.
Well, I mean, just that it would still be part of the plot of like, this is happening fast. It'd
Yes.
be
Uh-huh.
acknowledged by the people experiencing it, right?
Right. The whole thing is that this is like
Yeah.
a wild, tumbling, fast
Yeah.
relationship. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So like I said, like if it's like a fool's rush in, and
Mm.
then that could work. That's what I was just saying. Like the writing wasn't quite there. And but it was still overall cute enough. I probably liked the first one best, and then probably the fourth one, third one, second one.
I watched them not entirely in order. So I would say I think I maybe liked Sherry's movie the best.
Okay. Yeah.
And then maybe it's equal with Jenna's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then Kiki and then Josh.
Yeah. Well, let us know what you think and make sure you check out the Mahogany episode for more deep dive into Sherry's. It was a really fun episode of those ladies talking about that one. And I'll put a link down to that in the description. But thank you so much, Abby, for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let us know what you think about all the things we talked about. And you can make sure to follow me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media. I don't know if you want to share your socials.
You can find me on Blue Sky at Abby dash writes at bluesky.social,
Okay.
I think, whatever it
Send me
is.
the link and I'll put it in the description.
Okay.
Send me the link. Yeah. And if you follow, make sure you're following Hallmarkies podcast and all over the social medias. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps us a lot. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We're getting closer and closer to 10K. And we really want to make that goal by the end of the year. So please, please, please subscribe. Most of our viewers on YouTube aren't subscribers. So hit that subscribe button, please, please. And then we have our Patreon group, which is the biggest way you can support everything we do. And you get to be part of watch-alongs and Q&As with talent. You get to be part of listen to bonus episodes. I really try to make it as worth your while for the investment to become a patron. And we have our merch store. We have tons of fun Hallmark inspired designs. So check that out. And thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk to you later.